Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very exciting special edition of the Seismic Breakfast Briefing, where we are celebrating B Corp Month for 2025. We are going to be getting started in the next few minutes, allowing time for everyone in our community to log in and join us. So, in the meantime, please make sure you're sitting comfortably and don't hesitate to grab a tea or coffee before we jump in. We'll be waiting 2 or 3 minutes so that everyone can join us before we get started. For those of you that have joined, I'd love to hear from you all in the chat. You can find the chat in the bottom right of your screen, and it'd be great to hear an introduction to yourself. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And I'd love to know, what did you have for breakfast this morning? This morning, I had a very simple bowl of granola, a personal favourite of mine as we head into spring. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Pop your name in the chat. Where are you calling from? And what did you have for breakfast? And for those I've not met yet, my name is Olivia. I'm a senior sustainability consultant at Seismic, and I'm based in the Midlands in the UK. So whilst we get started, it'd be great to hear from you in the chat. Hi, Lucy. Oh, great to have you with us, calling in from Brighton. You had an omelette. What a lovely breakfast. Hi, Adam. Welcome. Calling in from Pip and Nuts, one of my favourite peanut butter brands, I've got to say. Fran, good welcome on the black coffee. Okay, a nice simple start to the day. Welcome, Courtney from Bloom, Adam, Tabby. Amelia, Isabel. Oh, Isabel, you had digestives for breakfast. That is an absolutely excellent choice. Harry, welcome. Water and coffee. Okay. Max, welcome. That sounds like a very healthy breakfast of overnight oats. Thank you. Lots of coffee from Emily as well. Wonderful. Great to have all of these intros coming in. Thank you for joining us this morning. Morning, Dee. Monica, oh, scrambled eggs sounds lovely. Lots of hot cooked breakfast this morning. Welcome, Simone. Wonderful. Great. Do keep those introductions coming. And now we're a few minutes in, I will get us started. So, welcome today to our breakfast briefing, all about Gen B driving action for B Corp Month. My name is Olivia, as I mentioned earlier, a senior sustainability consultant at Seismic, and here are the key takeaways that you will hopefully be leaving with in today's session. Firstly, a reminder of the growing B Corp movement, some insights into how B Corps can drive meaningful action, and we hope that you leave feeling inspired with some real world practical advice on how you can accelerate action in your organizations. Our agenda today is that we will cover a brief introduction to Seismic, and then I will hand over to our brilliant co-founder and Chief Impact Officer, Amy Bourbeau, who will be leading us through a reminder of the B Corp movement, some real-world examples of companies using the B Corp framework and going above and beyond. And then we're going to be hearing from two speakers joining us today from our community, who I'm personally really pleased are with us and so looking forward to hearing from, who are Mark Brown from Motability, an impactful organisation leveraging the B Corp framework, and Clay Brown from B Lab Global. After that, we will make sure to leave enough time for our panelists and Amy to respond to your questions. So please keep your questions coming in the chat throughout. We will be collecting them as they come in and asking them to the panelists at the end. So if you have any questions for the panel, please put them in the chat as we go, and we will have time to cover those at the end. So now, for those of you who've not met yet, welcome. We are Seismic. We are sustainability partners driving leading environmental and social change across all areas of business. And we bring together world-leading B Corp, net zero, communications and reporting experts on our mission to help businesses lead the shift. I'll briefly tell you, about why we exist, and that is that everything we do is about helping businesses to prosper by becoming an increasingly impactful force for good. And here is a sample of clients that we feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with. You'll see that we've supported a range of different sizes and sectors, B2B, B2C, and tech. And we've been lucky enough to support just under 200 businesses at Seismic. One of my favorite parts of our work is events like this, bringing you all together, our community and those that are new to the community, to hear firsthand from peers on how they've taken their organisation on a journey for increased impact and share lessons and answer questions along the way. So as we kick off, we'd like to start with a quick poll to understand what stage you are at in your B Corp journey. So soon there will be a poll appearing on your screen, and we'd love to know what stage are you at in your journey. So select 1 if you are exploring B Corp, 2 committed to certifying, 3 already a certified B Corp, or 4 which is a position that a lot of our clients are in, which is where, for a number of reasons, you may not be able to or not choosing to certify at this stage, but you recognize the power of leveraging B Corp as a framework for impact. And so that's how you're engaging with the movement. Wonderful. I will wait a few moments. I can already see we've had a lot of responses come in already. So I'll wait a couple moments and then share those back with you. We've had almost everyone answer, so if you've not had a chance to yet, please select your answer in the poll. Great. Okay, so scores on the doors are that the largest proportion, 43% of us in the room today, are already a certified B Corp, which is fantastic. So welcome to all those B Corps today. And then the second proportion, 24% of us are committed to certifying. So you're en route to B Corp certification. And then we have around 14% of us who are exploring B Corp, so perhaps in the early days of the journey, and 19% who are not pursuing certification, but using the framework to measure and improve your impact. So thank you so much for letting us know where you are. And there's a place for absolutely every organisation in this movement. So it's fantastic that we've got a range across the 4 of those stages in the room today. And no matter what stage you're at in your engagement with the B Corp movement, we'd love to hear your questions and put them to our panelists today. So now it gives me really great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who is Amy Bourbeau, the co-founder and Chief Impact Officer of Seismic. Amy started working as UK's first B Corp consultant in 2015 and has been committed to helping the community grow ever since. She works closely with B Lab, having co-created and delivered the B Leaders training programme. She has supported hundreds of organisations on their sustainability journeys through certification and beyond. So over to Amy to take us through our session today.
Always finding the unmute button. Thank you so much, Olivia. And thanks everyone for joining us this morning. It's wonderful to have so many of you here and so many B Corps as well. That's lovely to see. And today, really looking forward to diving into a bit more around how we can kind of go above and beyond and take inspiration from B Corps and the B Corp movement. In the spirit of B Corp Month and Gen B, which is all about how you kind of inspire change in how you take a leadership position and move forward and make things happen. So before we jump into that, I'm going to give a very quick overview. I know most of us here already get it and are bought in, but a quick reminder, what is B Corp? Well, it is a certification that's, probably the thing that it is best known for companies who want to prove that they are meeting a high standard of social and environmental performance and commit to that and hold themselves to account for it. but it is also a management tool. So, regardless of whether you would like to certify or not, the B Corp framework of the B Impact Assessment is a hugely useful tool to demystify what it means to be a responsible business, and is used by over 285,000 organizations around the world, which shows the kind of power and the accessibility of this tool. And and all of this exists to inspire a movement of people using business as a force for good. B Corp is intentionally tough. It is intentionally challenging. It is intentionally trying to reach wider and wider audiences because the goal here is to really change the way that we do business and shift from a traditionally shareholder-driven view of capitalism to one that prioritizes all stakeholders and says, why don't we do business as though people and planet both matter, as well as profit, because they do. So the movement and the community of B Corps has been growing ever since its launch in 2007. We are now at over 9,500 B Corps around the world. We have a big hub of those here in the UK, over 2,000 certified B Corps in the UK. And when we think about the kind of power, the collective power of that, we are representing almost a million, or we are employing almost a million people. And that is a huge amount of influence that we have on kind of spreading this impact throughout all of our behaviors and our decisions. And there's a lot of great ways you can get involved in the B Corp community. There's everything from kind of um, lighter touch, just coming together at mixing events and meeting other people in the community, whether you're certified or not, learning together, chatting, connecting, meeting great people. There's also larger scale events where we can hear from speakers, join in workshops, etc. And there's also working groups where you can join together with people maybe from the same industry who have shared challenges, or from different industries who are working on a particular problem, but all have this kind of shared view and this shared goal, and realize that we can work a lot better if we come together and collaborate. So a little bit around how we can drive some meaningful action through both the use of the B Corp framework, but also beyond that. And by the way, I'm not going to talk today about how you become a B Corp or go too deep into the specifics of the standards. If you are interested in learning more about that, we have plenty of guides and recordings and webinars about that. So we can share around that information in the chat or afterwards, in case that is something that you're interested in. But I think we want to go to the community to kind of illustrate some great examples. So one example is our wonderful client, Motability Operations, who we will be hearing shortly from our friend for Motability, Mark Brown, who's going to be on our panel. But I think they're a great example of how, as an organization, you can go deeper. I think that oftentimes businesses, especially if you have a positive impact embedded in the way that you behave naturally, you can feel like you're already doing a great job, or maybe you have a high B Corp score and you think, let's give ourselves a pat on the back. We're already doing great. We just need to kind of maintain this. But actually, there's always a deeper level that we can go in regards to creating impact. And Motability are a great example of this. So they are an organization that has the largest car fleet in the UK that they lease to disabled customers, and they have over 800,000 customers who they serve and help to have accessible transport. This is already massively impactful from a social and an economic point of view, enabling people to be able to live their lives, travel freely, have autonomy to travel. They could say, great, we've done a great job, let's just keep doing this. But what they've acknowledged is that, of course, alongside that positive impact, there is a negative impact of having more cars on the road. And so they've committed to transition 800,000 of their customers into electric vehicles by 2032. And not only that, but acknowledging that, again, you put 800,000 new electric vehicles on the road, there's a lot of infrastructure and systems change that needs to happen to enable that. And so they are committed to enabling that and investing in this and bringing together partners to make this happen. And so I think just thinking through the layers of the impact that you have and sometimes the unintended negative outcomes of the work that you do and how you can then address that and use that to propel and deepen your impact even further. Another fabulous example is another client that we are proud to support, who's Tony's Chocolonely. Um, and there's a couple things I'm going to highlight about Tony's. One of which is their governance structure. And I think governance is something that often gets overlooked. It's not the most exciting topic often, or it's not. I think it is quite exciting, but it's not always seen as especially exciting. Or it doesn't seem like something that can necessarily drive a huge amount of change, but actually, it really is, and it's about getting to the root of our system and the way that we operate. And so Tony's has done a great job to acknowledge that kind of standard governance structures don't always enable a permanent commitment to impact. And so they've actually implemented something called a golden share, which means that they have a legal structure which enables a permanent ongoing commitment to their mission. And their mission is to eradicate slavery in the supply chain. And this means that they may have different investors over time. The business may be sold or that kind of thing, but actually this is locked and embedded in to who they are. And so as long as Tony's Chocolonely exists, they will have their commitment to 100% slave-free chocolate. And there's other examples that you can, other ways that you can approach things like this. So you may have heard of Nature on the Board, which is a movement to have a permanent seat on the board that represents nature and the environment, where you have a proxy person, somebody who is an environmental expert, who is representing and kind of acting as the voice for the environment and has a voting seat. So they're able to contribute and make sure that that the environment is being represented and considered in all of the decisions that the business makes. Faith in Nature and House of Hackney are two really great examples of companies who have kind of taken leadership and implemented this. And our friends Bates Wells, they were the first B Corp law firm in the UK, but more importantly, they were the law firm that created the UK legal change. They are able to kind of answer questions or support you if this is something that you're interested in doing and implementing in your business, or even just exploring more about. The other piece that is maybe, a little less a step in this direction, if you're not quite ready to jump from one thing to the other, is just around having executive and or wider team compensation tied to your social and environmental performance. So again, it's making sure that that commitment to sustainability and impact is taken seriously and is treated like other metrics such as profit and revenue, where you're saying ESG is important and we are going to link our remuneration to this. So governance can be used in some cool ways to kind of make sure that we are embedding this impact, committing to it. The other piece about Tony's is to highlight they are a great example of how you can create solutions. Similar to what we spoke through around Motability, creating a solution, being part of the solution for more EVs. I think Tony's have done a good job of this with their mission of slave-free chocolate. Oftentimes a company will say, what can we do? This is a systemic issue. Yes, there's slavery in the chocolate supply chain, but it's so deep rooted. We engage with our suppliers and then it's up to them to engage with theirs. That is quite a common response about whatever the challenge may be. This is just the way that things are. But actually, we can change that. And you don't even have to be a massive organization to take steps in those directions. So what Tony's have done is they've said, yes, this is an issue, and no, there are not good enough solutions out there to address this. And so we're going to create one. So they've started this initiative called Tony's Open Chain, which is a fantastic initiative which calls on mission allies, so other people who create chocolate and chocolate products, to sign up and to adhere to 5 sourcing principles. They keep it simple. And those are to do with traceability, higher prices, long-term commitments, stronger farmer partnerships, enhanced quality and productivity. And they get these mission allies to commit to these principles because they've identified these are the kind of key actions that are going to work towards reducing the issue of slavery in the supply chain and going straight to the source. And they've already had a fantastic kind of set of mission allies join the group. There's Pippa Nutt, our lovely client, Huel, Aldi, Lidl, Waitrose, all signing up, not only changing their supply chains as a result of this, but also putting the logo on their pack and raising increasing amounts of awareness, so that more and more people understand this, and consumers also are able to make informed decisions about what they buy. So hopefully quite inspiring there. And I think that, some of these are pretty big, large scale commitments. And we encourage our clients to kind of try and think big, and to not limit yourself to the obvious or the, kind of simple operational impact in front of you. But also acknowledge that this is a journey, a phrase that is used a lot in sustainability. And there's multiple different steps that you can take to influence impact and to kind of go above and beyond. And sometimes you don't need to create a solution from scratch. Sometimes there's already people out there who are doing a great job of creating or working towards a solution. And an example of that is the Better Business Act, which is a UK campaign who is bringing together business leaders to call on the government to say that we need to adjust the Companies Act. And what that adjustment would be is an adjustment that makes sure that for every single business in the UK, they are legally responsible to benefit workers, customers, community, all while still, sorry, and the environment, all while still driving a profit. So it's not turning everything on its head. It's not a really radical change from what the Companies Act says now, which is that businesses need to, are able to do this, but it's saying that they need to commit to that consideration and they have that responsibility, and they will be held to account for that. So this campaign is to get businesses on board to support this and to support this change to happen, which would be incredibly meaningful in regards to redefining what business is in the UK. And so you can simply sign up for the Better Business Act to show your support. We'll share the link with you to do that. But you can also kind of campaign for it as well, advocate for it, engage your supply chain, and encourage them to do the same, engage other stakeholders as well. So there's this kind of piece around collective action and being a voice for the things that you believe in. And again, kind of to this point, there's other ways that you can kind of work smarter. You don't always have to create the solution from scratch. There are so many brilliant and inspiring minds out there, from businesses, from B Lab, who's the organization that runs the B Corp movement, from all sorts of experts and academics and nonprofits and the business community, who are working on these fantastic solutions and better ways of behaving. You can collaborate with other B Corps, reach out, suggest working together. You can join the working groups that I mentioned that B Lab has. For example, in the UK, we have a plastics and packaging working group, and there'll be people from businesses across all different sectors, some of whom, totally different sectors, but that are all have the challenge of how do we address the plastic crisis. And so they're working together on that, or there's working groups for departments like HR or marketing. For example, I think the marketing and the consumer facing working group came together to engage publications like The Grocer, to engage supermarkets like Waitrose um, uh, and Ocado, and they've then done a fantastic job of raising awareness about B Corps. In B Corp month, you'll see B Corp aisles in supermarkets promoting B Corps and that kind of thing. So you can really come together and drive this collective action, which contributes towards a shift in the way that we do business. And also, there are so many useful resources and guides available. One example here is something that B Lab US and Canada did around how you can drive climate action through your business finances. And this is an example of actually something, kind of contrary to some of the examples shared, something that is a really actually fairly insignificant change oftentimes, but that can drive a really significant impact. So alongside this guide, which is available online, and again, we can share the link, which takes you through some simple steps of how you can kind of, as it says, leverage your various financial practices to create less negative and more positive impact for the climate. There was a kind of working group that was launched where they kind of engaged a group of B Corps who on how to actually commit to this and what action to take. And so over a 12-month period, but with a kind of concentrated period of a few months, the B Corps who took part of that, 30% of them participated in the program, made a shift in their financial practices, and 40% committed to do this over the coming year. This was just in September, just gone, that this has happened. And again, to that point on the scale of the community, if we take into consideration the kind of approximate combined revenue of these participating companies, that's $6.5 billion. This change in practices, whether it's, shifting banks, whether it's shifting investments or pensions, that represents a huge amount of capital that is shifting towards a better way of doing things, and ultimately kind of reducing the influence of the fossil fuel industry and greenhouse gas emissions alongside that. So I think just it's really important to have that attitude of there are little and big ways that we can go above and beyond, question our kind of status quo, and make these changes that can prove that business can be done in a better way. So that's enough of me chatting at you and sharing these examples. We are really lucky to be joined by two incredibly impactful individuals who can share some more great examples and guidance. And I'm very happy to introduce our two panelists. So we have Mark Brown, who is the head of impact and sustainability for Motability Operations, who I mentioned earlier, who are helping over 800,000 disabled people across the UK access Motability solutions via the Motability scheme. Mark has been with the business for over 12 years and is responsible for leading their approach to impact and sustainability, including, two not so small goals of enabling the evolution to EV, and also guiding them on their journey to become the UK's largest B Corp, which is a goal that they are hopefully soon to achieve. And alongside Mark, we are joined by Clay Brown. No relation, I'm pretty sure, unless we find out something new today. But Clay Brown is the co-lead executive and the head of standards and certification and product delivery for B Lab Global, where he is playing a absolutely critical role in evolving, growing and scaling the existing and new B Corp programs. And as I'm sure most of us today know, we are going through the biggest evolution of the B Corp standards at the moment. So Clay has got a big plate full of challenges, and we're actually super lucky that he's been able to make the time to join us today. His background, as well as being at B Lab now, is 20 years of experience on kind of creating these social and environmental programs, having been at companies like Fairtrade USA, FlowCert, the Fair Trade Foundation. So welcome to you both. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I am going to go to you first, Mark, if that's okay, and just say kind of, as I mentioned before, by nature of what Motability does, you are already creating a huge amount of positive impact on a kind of social and an economic point of view by enabling people with disabilities to have access to transport. Why did you feel the need to then kind of go above and beyond and actually go on a B Corp journey?
Yeah, thanks, Aidan. Good morning. Yeah, just to clarify, Clay and I are no relation, and if we were, he got the cool name and the good looks. So, but as far as we're aware, there's no connection. I think in terms of, at Motability Software, as you said, Amy, we support over 800,000 disabled people in the UK to access mobility solutions, which essentially is predominantly in the form of a vehicle, which is leased over 3 years, which comes with an all-inclusive package of covering insurance, repair, etc. I think really for us, it's around how do we ensure that just transition for our customers and for disabled people. Some stats that sort of really stick out in my head are around the fact 15% of the UK population are registered with some form of disability. 2% of the UK population become disabled every year. So it's a growing part of our society, and a part of our society that tends to be left behind to a degree. So if you think of most accessibility solutions, they tend to be retrofitted, and they tend to be, adaptations of things that are designed for able-bodied people. A good example of that is within our sort of wheelchair accessible vehicles. We take what is typically a van type vehicle, and we then have to adapt that vehicle to enable a customer to either be a passenger or to actually drive that vehicle from a wheelchair. So those are some good examples really of where the just transition really needs to for us become part of the way that we think and the way that businesses think, and building it in from the beginning as opposed to retrofitting it. And I think where B Corp is really interesting is we see it very much as a way of us being able to assess where we are. We see it as a bit of an assurance for areas in which we think we're particularly strong, but also importantly, we see it as an area to be able to help us indicate particular avenues or particular areas of the business where we might need to put more focus and more emphasis. I think sometimes, in the realms of businesses, many businesses are very complicated, and sometimes it's hard, for people to sort of step back and focus on, well, actually, what are the areas where we really need to improve? What are the areas where we need to drive change? And as you say, Amy, nowhere is greater prevalent than that within the transition to electric vehicle. If you look at our customer base, we know that over half of them have no access to off-street parking, therefore charging at home is not an option. And if you look at the availability and accessibility of charging points in the UK at the moment, whilst it's improving, it's still not always a great experience for a disabled person. So for us, it's very much about continuing and enhancing, as you say, that social purpose. For us, we could take a step back and say, well, we know we do a really good positive thing for society and for our customers, but we also know that predominantly they're driving petrol and diesel vehicles, which we know has a significant impact on the environment. So we're very focused on actually how do we ensure that transition is as smooth and seamless as possible for our customers. None of our customers are left behind. But also using the B Corp standards and framework, what we've been able to do is say, well, actually, what elements of our business do we really need to put some focus and emphasis on to ensure that actually that we are, continuing to go above and beyond for our customers and representing disabled people.
It's amazing. Thank you, Mark. And I think, yeah, the commitment that you've shown and the scale of the challenge, because you're a large organization, is really inspiring. So thank you for that. And on the topic of using the B Corp standards, as I mentioned, Clay, we're going through the biggest evolution of the B Corp standards since its launch in 2007 at the moment. And I think that, probably most of us on the webinar know, but it's good to kind of acknowledge that this is going to be a relatively big step up in the kind of rigor and what it means to be a B Corp. Which is great because it's keeping our community to account, and it's helping to make sure that the B Corp movement is doing what it intends to do, which is really shifting the way that business is done. What I would be interested to hear, like, what are you the most excited about? What are the elements of the new standards that you think are going to especially drive the most impact in comparison to the existing ones?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Well, I'm obviously very excited about the new standards. I think it's important to maybe name up front that, often people think of a standard really as just a tool for certification, but for us, it's really much more than that. It's really a recognition that business has been part of the problem for a long time, and we strongly believe that as a result of business being part of the problem, business has a role to play in being part of the solution. And so we really see this standard as kind of a step-by-step guide for how businesses in 2025 and beyond can be part of the solution, how they can be a force for good in the world. But it's also a practical tool for certification for us as well. And so the reason we use certification as a tool is not because it's our ambition to have, millions of certified B Corps. I think that would be amazing, but really more importantly for us is that, certification can be kind of a proof case that it's possible to do business differently than the way it's been done historically in the mainstream. And so by having a standard that is raising the bar, what we're actually doing is creating an even more credible group of companies that can demonstrate that it's possible to do business differently. They can also be a leading voice to describe what the role is of business in society today, which is broader than, as you were saying, Amy, being kind of beholden to shareholders, but rather think about the impact you can have on all stakeholders, on people and planet. And so by raising the bar and by introducing this new standard, we're creating an even more credible group of communities. So because B Corp, we really believe B Corps are up for the challenge, they're going to come along with us and they're going to meet this new bar. And that creates the credibility that we need in order to change the narrative of being a business in society. But it also helps us to drive kind of regulatory and policy change, things like the Better Business Act, and having companies who are verified as being credible can speak credibly then to regulators and to others. And so I think just naming that the new standard is going to help us achieve those things, I think better than our current version for a number of reasons. One, because it's introducing kind of minimum requirements across all areas of sustainability, not allowing kind of a pick and choose model where you might be able to be very strong on the social but weak on climate or vice versa. And so that's kind of overall what I'm excited about, the reason why we're doing the standard in the first place. But a few of the specific areas that I'm the most excited about, I think the first one is kind of maybe very obvious to everyone, but it's around climate action. I think we are obviously in a climate emergency. Most people recognize the need for action. And to date, not all B Corps have had to act on climate. And so I'm really excited. I think it's going to drive impact at a level that's going to be really impactful for our community, but also, again, back to the credibility, it's going to raise the credibility of our community. Obviously, my background is in fair trade, so I'm excited about the work that we're doing around worker well-being. Putting all B Corps on a journey to paying a living wage, I think is a really important step. It's a commitment, and it's a step that I think we're excited to take with all of you. And so those are probably two of the main ones. But one that's maybe doesn't get as much attention that I'm excited about is because I love design. I love product design, actually. It's one of the things that I'm interested in, is the work that we're going to be doing around circularity. So looking at the standard around environmental impact and circularity, thinking through from the beginning of product design and the role of your business in creating kind of a more circular economy, I think is something that's super exciting as well. So it's a holistic framework. There's a lot in there that I think is going to benefit not just our community, but also your businesses and the businesses of the people that you work with. But those are just to pick a few, those are the ones I'm the most excited about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's nice is that some of the evolution of the standards, like for example, climate, and that companies will need to measure their carbon and have a net zero pathway. And that's the type of thing that is kind of probably for a lot of businesses, they know that they kind of need to do it. It's maybe been on their to-do list for a while. It'll encourage them to make that jump. And then other elements, for example, like the circularity piece or the collective action piece might be actually something new that opens up companies' minds on we hadn't really taken the time to stop and reflect on the circularity of our product or service, or how we could engage in collective action to drive change. So hopefully engaging different parts of B Corp's collective brain, so to speak. And then Clay, if I could just stay with you quickly, I think, obviously we focus on the standards, and that's the kind of core element of how B Lab is creating change. But as I mentioned before, there's this fantastic movement and community as well of B Corps. And I guess, like, can you share a little bit about what it means to be a part of that community, and how you can kind of come together to go above and beyond?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think whenever I'm asked this question, my first reaction is obviously to dive into kind of the details of how businesses work together. And I think that's great. And I'll get to that in a minute. But really, it's also really just a lovely community of people that you get to be part of. People are super nice. There's like-minded. It's a very kind community. And I think, basically great people to hang out with. And so every time I go to a B Corp event, I'm always reminded, actually, this type of community is really needed because it brings kind of a sense of positivity, optimism, action, I think, into the world that's missing sometimes, especially in kind of the world we're facing today, where there's a lot of negativity and a lot of skepticism about things. One of the things that I love about the B Corp community is it's sort of the antidote to that, and I find that super empowering and very interesting. Amy, and Mark, we saw each other a couple last week in Bristol at an event. And it just reminds me again how important the community is from that point of view. We're all individuals, we're all people working for businesses, and it's great to have a community where we can come together and explore problems and solutions together. And that kind of gets me on to, I think, one of the most important things that the B Corp community brings, besides just great people to hang out with and go to the pub with, is that it's really a powerful platform for collaboration and innovation. It's that like-minded nature of businesses who are trying to solve similar problems, whether they're in your industry or cross industry. And you mentioned a couple of the examples of those already, Amy, with the like Tony's open chain work that they're doing. It's a great example of how in one B Corp is opening up kind of a technology and a solution to the industry and bringing that to other B Corps to say, hey, this is a tool, you should use it. It's innovation, it's collaboration, I think, at its best, that's trying to solve a common problem, but a common problem for good. There's other examples of those, like the B Beauty Coalition, which is a coalition of many of the B Corp beauty companies in the beauty industry who've come together around industry collaboration, looking at things like the reduction of plastic waste or other issues of the industry. It creates kind of a pre-competitive environment, which is, I think, needed, and where we see some of the most impactful actions is when businesses actually come together around their B Corp certification to try to solve common problems that they have in a pre-competitive way. And I think it creates a layer of trust because hey, this company is a B Corp. They must share somewhat similar values to me. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to get to the status of being a B Corp. And so I think those are the things that really are impactful for me. And the last one I want to name is sort of one that I love because of its grassroots nature, is the B locals that happen all over the country and all over the world. There's collections of B Corps at local level, whether it's your local city or your region in the UK or in the US or in anywhere or in Europe that come together to support other local businesses. So that connection between kind of being a B Corp and your place, I think, is very important in our kind of decentralized kind of virtual worlds that we live in today, B Corp offers a chance for you to actually come together with businesses who are around you and like-minded. I think that's really powerful as well.
Couldn't agree more. And there's that certain something and that enriching feeling when you come together with your community, whether it's local or the B Corp wider community. And I think it sounds sometimes maybe a bit woo-woo when you try and describe it, but if you haven't gone to a B Corp event or joined something like this, I strongly recommend it, because it's something that you kind of, once you experience it, you understand what it brings. Obviously, there's so many great things about B Corp and the movement and all of this stuff. It's also hard and it's not perfect. Mark, as I mentioned, you guys are a pretty large organization. It's a not an easy thing that you've decided to do. What have been some of the challenges? By the way, this is the last question before we hop over to audience Q&A. So I hope, audience, you've popped in some questions that you want to hear the answers to. But Mark, what have been some of your main challenges, and kind of how have you overcome that? And what advice would you give to companies who are wanting to accelerate their impact?
Yeah, I think echoing what Clay said, I think, one of the opportunities a B Corp community gives you is that ability to talk to other businesses. And I know through talking to lots of different businesses that, may have good intentions, but maybe struggling in terms of sort of progressing things forward is that, getting that business engagement from the off can be quite tricky, particularly in larger organizations. And I think ultimately, what I've seen over the last sort of 2.5, 3 years, whilst doing this role, is essentially that there are lots of factual-based information out there about how being, a business that's focused on, your purpose actually is really good for business. I mentioned, the stat about the proportion of disabled people in the UK. From a business point of view, if you're not focused on people with disability, then potentially you're negating 15% of your market. So there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that actually, this actually has a really positive impact on businesses' performance, how businesses are perceived. We know from research that the B Corp brand is becoming a much better known brand with consumers, and hopefully, over time, it will become a differentiator of choice and really help people to, buy into businesses that are actually trying to do the right thing. I think the first challenge is, and this sort of links to the Better Business Act, is that sort of, changing the legal premise of the business. That's one of your first challenges around, once you've got that embedded, and thankfully, with a very supportive senior team, and it was actually one of the first things we did. We adopted the Bates Wells sort of terminology within our Articles Association verbatim, and essentially, that then sets the whole premise and legal status of the business. That then drives director responsibility, and it becomes a slightly less of a challenge then when it's embedded in the principle of how the business is run. The next challenge then is think about, well, how do you then embed that as part of your strategy and your objectives and your goals? And I think, again, this is where the B Corp framework is really helpful in terms of advising how to construct aspirational goals, how you think about aspirational goals, because they can be in themselves quite big, scary things. But I think, the cliche, every big journey starts with sort of one step. It's about, as a first point of call, go and have a look at the BIA, go and have a look at the B Corp standards. There's a lot of really great information that's free to use for companies on the website. We use the B Corp standards and BIA now pretty much on a weekly basis to really sort of help assess and understand where we are, how we're progressing, what the areas of focus need to be. So I think, when you're approaching this can be quite a big, scary monster. But I think through things like using the B Corp support that's online, being part of the B Corp community, talking to other businesses that are at different stages of the journey, we can all really learn from each other. I've learned a lot through doing that. And I think, the progress that we've made has been, probably significantly better as a result of that. The other thing I'd say is actually, thinking about engaging, experts. So, a Seismic type organization really has helped us in terms of giving us credible, independent advice, guidance, and also the ability then to show us what other companies are doing in order to do that. Now, I appreciate not every business is in a position where they could do that, but for us, that's really sort of helped really put a structure around what we're doing to make it clear. It's now embedded right from our strategy and our aspirational goals through to the work now that we're doing within my team and across the wider business. So I think it's almost that snowball effect. I think you need to start getting the momentum going, and what you'll find is, over time, you will get more advocates on board, you'll get more support on board. And as a result, the business will start to embrace this, and really sort of help, drive forward that positive focus on both social impact as well as, environmental impact. I mean, one example I'll give is that, with a significantly social impact as a business, we can say, well, actually, we do enough in that space. But we've gone beyond that by saying, well, actually, what can we do as a business, as a commercial entity? So we've engaged with Neighbourly, who are also a certified B Corp, to look at things like volunteering opportunities, charitable giving, match funding opportunities, which our employees love because it gives them a sense of purpose. It gives us the ability to give back to the communities in which we operate. But also really sort of, it's another part of what we do. It's another part of what we stand for. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be these big bang, global impact type things. Sometimes it's the small things that can also really help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's the reminder to think big, but also think of those small steps. Thank you so much, Mark. And Olivia, I think I'm going to hand over to you to ask some questions from the audience.
Yes, thanks, Amy, and all of you. We've had loads of brilliant questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to do my best to cover them all. Thank you, audience members, for sharing them. So to start off with, a question for yourself, Amy, from Max. Max is working for a business that became a B Corp in November. Congrats, Max and team. And they want to run a small B Corp session with their team to build understanding and awareness of what B Corp means for their business. They don't want it to just be a presentation, they want it to be fun. Do you have any suggestions of how they can engage their team around their new certification?
Great. Congratulations. And so important to do this, because oftentimes people work so hard to certify and then they're like, okay, phew, we've certified, we can chill for a minute, and then forget about it and then have a mad scramble to recertify. So definitely correct to embed it from day one or day whatever it is. And I think making it fun is one of the most important things, actually. And one of the things that is also great about B Corp is that it is an engaging tool. It's not something that is like a dry form that you fill in. So I think you want to not overload people with too much information, first of all. Think about what are the basics that they need to know. Let's start there. Let's bear in mind that everybody is busy doing their day job. This should be also everybody's day job, but people have got a lot on their plates. So it's keeping it accessible. And that fun piece is really important. So think about celebrating the wins, small and large. Think about championing the individuals who are contributing. Think about using fun names. Beekeepers is one that's often used. I heard one recently that was like, oh, I can't remember, but apply a fun name that is relevant to your business or something like that, and break down these kind of goals, whether they're to do with your literal certification and how you progress on that, or things outside it. You can do hackathons. You can engage with other B Corps, get people to come in. B Corps are always really happy to collaborate. So hear from other people. So yeah, happy to connect more afterwards and share more, but those are some ideas that come to mind. Good luck.
Thanks for those ideas, Amy. Brilliant, and excited to hear how it goes, Max. Now I've got a question for you, Mark, and this has come from Fran Page. And Fran says, do you feel the disabled community is sometimes not prioritised enough in DEI dialogue and action? If so, what can we all do to support that?
I think it's a really Good question. I mean, one of my other hats in the business is I lead our Enable network, which is our employee network for disabled people. So I get a lot of good feedback through that channel. Um, it's hard to say that one particular aspect of ED&I is focused more above other. I think we're all trying to do the right things in ED&I, but I think sometimes people's focus and balance shift from different areas, and I think the trick is actually how do you sort of maintain that balance. But I think what I would say is from a disabled person's perspective, it's getting businesses to think about inclusivity. So, for example, I met a really inspirational impact leader who works for Procter and Gamble, who is blind. And one of the innovations that they've introduced as part of some of their product range is actually more packaging that actually people with either sight loss or impaired sight can actually really sort of utilize to understand what the products are. So that's not a huge thing to do for a business like that. It's a tweak to the design of the packaging, but actually what it does then mean is they've got this big group of people that potentially will choose that business over other businesses. So I think really my advice would be is think about designing in accessibility inclusion up front, and then making sure that actually you do that on a consistent basis, and that then will yield benefit in terms of making sure you appeal across all aspects of ED&I, not just focus on sort of individual aspects.
Thanks so much, Mark, for sharing that. I'm sure it's something you could discuss for hours on end, so I appreciate your quick answer there. And now a question for you, Clay, from Sabrina Hodes. I think it's about sustainability, kind of talent and skills. So Sabrina says that people are becoming increasingly aware of social and environmental challenges and seeking opportunities to transition and apply their own skills to sustainability. Is B Lab doing anything during B Corp Month to support people in that transition to working in the sustainability space?
That's a great question, Sabrina. To be honest, I don't know for sure. I may have to follow up with you on that. I think there's a lot of stuff that we do generally where we have a significant number of partnerships with academia, where we work with business schools to kind of upskill students on issues of sustainability, both in terms of B Corp and in terms of sustainability. So trying to create a broader ecosystem of professionals who understand the issues around business and sustainability, because I think that's an important aspect, so that as we're driving more people into jobs, into business, they're coming with that kind of foundational knowledge about what it means to be a responsible or sustainable business, and ideally even what it means to be a B Corp. And so that's something that we do on a regular basis, and we have a number of academic partners that we work with around the world who are invite us in to speak at their business schools, or who we actually help build curriculum courses with as well, so they can distribute their students. But please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to understand maybe more about the question afterwards and see if there are things that are happening. There is a jobs B Corp jobs webpage. I think it's more relevant in the US than it is in the UK, but there's a number of spaces I think where we try to facilitate and provide access to B Corps of talented individuals who can support them, whether it's consultants, potential employees, etc.
Thanks, Clay. Yeah, and it's really exciting to see this shift, this demand and appetite for working more in impactful roles. Now, we have run out of time, and in the last minute, we had a last rush of questions, which you didn't get to. So what we will do is we will put these questions to our panelists so they can have a look and have the opportunity to answer afterwards, if possible. And yeah, I think everyone in the panel has said as they've spoken, don't hesitate to reach out if you want to continue this dialogue. It's been a pleasure having you with us, Clay and Mark, and having you, our audience, with us asking questions. Thank you for joining the session, and we look forward to continuing the conversation offline. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of B Corp Month. Take care, everybody.